What if being a great parent is easier than we thought?
Coach Crandall, you said one of my favorite words.
Which one? Great?
Easier.
Oh, well, easier. Okay, great.
Great is sometimes overused.
Well, I always think of great when I think about you.
Oh. Awkward
I figured
silence.
I'd bring a little cheese to start.
Awkward silence. Blush.
Oh, you are blushing too. Those of you watching on YouTube can see Steve looks really good in a blush.
No. I like the word easier, though. I think as humans, we love the word easier.
Oh man,
Where's the easy button?
Yeah. Well, our brains default to easy, Steve. Our brains are constantly looking for ways that we can save energy. It's so good at helping us survive. It's always looking. So we crave that. It's really cool.
I have a great example of that too.
Tell me.
Well, the high school that I used to teach at, that I was at for 23 years, 22 years.
Dang.
Every time I'm at that school, I am disappointed in the sidewalk design. Because they tried to do something that was really aesthetic.
Mm-hmm.
They did these angled sidewalks, and I guess if you were looking at it from above, from a drone, it looks really beautiful. But then
because that's what everybody looks at a building from is, 500 feet elevation.
Sure, but then you see where people actually walk. You can see the paths. Yeah. It looks like a game trail in the mountains. It's like, well, that's where the deer go to get their water every morning, because people were choosing the easier, faster.
Yeah, they want to take the most direct path, the easiest path to get from point A to point B.
Yeah.
And we get that.
Yeah, so whenever I saw somebody actually using those sidewalks, this is probably terrible, but
Did you judge them?
I did. I judged them. I thought they just can't be very smart.
But what if they were the disciplined ones who they took the hard road because it was the right road? Almost sound like I'm quoting Dear Evan Hansen now.
Hey, you have completely shifted my perspective. I am now, in fact, I'm going to go up and I'm going to go talk to those people and tell them how much I respect them for taking the long route and protecting the grass.
Absolutely.
Yes. I've been looking at this wrong for 20 some years.
Didn't BYU, I think BYU campus had a problem with that a long time ago, and the president came out and made this big statement, and his thing was keep your bod off the sod.
Oh, really?
Yeah. My parents used to say that all the time.
I'd never heard that.
Keep your bod off the sod.
So now I forgot what question you asked.
What if being a great parent is easier than we thought?
I know we have a whole bunch of really good parents listening to this, and I would also say we have some great parents.
Yes. Fantastic.
And then we have parents like you and me that made every mistake in the book. And so we're trying to get better.
Yeah.
I'm going to learn from this episode.
I think I learned as we were getting ready for this, there's always little things that you can get better at. But I think we've got something that definitely helps making a great parent easier. Now, it's not necessarily easy to execute these things, but it really is an easy path forward. If you want to be a great parent or a better parent than you already are, doing these two things would help a ton.
Okay, so now you just did a little teaser there. Bring Dr. Daniel Amen into the conversation, and let's get right to these two things.
Okay. So Dr. Daniel Amen, who's a great follow, by the way, fantastic child psychiatrist, regular psychiatrist, does a lot of brain imaging stuff, really smart, very, very well researched. He had a little clip on his Instagram where he just highlighted the two things that he felt all great parents do. And do you want to tell them what they are?
Firm and kind.
Yes. And the key word in there is
and because these are
you can do both.
These are not mutually exclusive. You do not have to separate them and just do one or the other.
And that's one of the mistakes that parents make a lot, is that they feel like they have to be one or the other. They can't be kind, so they have to be firm. And so they lean too hard on the firm and they lose the kind connection with their kids, and that creates a problem. Other way is just as true. They don't want to be too firm. They don't want to make their kids feel too uncomfortable. So they lean too hard on the kind. They lose the firm, and now you have a problem on that side.
Right. It sounds like this is where we could start talking about being permissive and punitive.
Yes.
We're talking about being too lenient because we're really trying to be kind. Or now, okay, we've got to be really firm here, but we go too far and we become just a punitive parent, which is always just is kind of like I've always just viewed it as a quick Band-Aid type of thing. I mean, you can get a certain result, but
using fear and punishment, you can get more of the result you want, but at what cost? If you lean too hard on the punishment side of things, you end up with bitterness, resentment, none of which is good to have in a parent-child relationship.
Yeah. So give us some wisdom here on the firm and kind coming. Go for it.
I think the foundational to me, it's a consistency thing more than anything else. It's having a clear picture in your head of this is what firm looks like, this is what kind looks like, and then consistently executing on that. Because when kids know what's coming, that creates a safe environment for them. They know that, hey, if I do this, I'm going to get the firm. Or I know when this happens, I'm going to get the kind. Or I know when I do this, I break this rule, I'm going to get firm, but I'm going to get kind at the same time. If you can consistently execute firm and kind, that helps a ton. But that demands having clarity within your parenting, either you or your spouse together. It's best if it's together, if you're on the same page with that. But creating consistency creates the best possible environment for your kid to experience both firm and kind and know what to expect.
So I'm gonna go back to my years in the classroom and hearing and eavesdropping, not intentionally, but if you're in a classroom with teens for decades, you overhear conversations. Do you think it's true that the pendulum swings one way or the other with different parents? So let's say we have a mom and a
societally.
Dad. Yeah, we have a mom and a dad. I would always hear this, that one or the other is too firm or too kind, too permissive, too punitive. So when you say that the parents, if we're talking about a 2-parent family, it's really critical that they're on the same page, because they probably are not carbon copies of the same firmness, the same kindness. So if you're not having this conversation in advance and really putting some time into this, and then immediately you just go to the situation and you pull out the firm stick, you pull out the 2x4,
bust out the hatchet,
or you just buy 2 gallons of ice cream and pat them on the head and just say, it's okay that you
were naughty.
Yeah, I was going to think of some type of crime, but yeah. Yeah, they've got to be on the same page here.
Yeah, it helps a lot. And it's not bad if you have one that is a little more kind and one that's a little more firm, if they're on the same page. Like you can, good cop, bad cop gets used a lot, but it can work, especially if it's like a coordinated approach. If it's working together, one of the bigger keys is just being on the same page. If you're a single parent, that can be a little challenging, because you have to balance the firm and the kind, but now it's coming from the same person, which it definitely ups the challenge on that. But if you're aware, you can successfully do this as a single parent as well. I think one thing to keep in mind with the firm and kind is this is the kind of thing that makes parenting really hard. It's the hardest job. We say that a lot. It's the hardest job on earth, and there's not a close second, because you have to adapt to each of your children. Each of your kids is going to have a different experience of firm and kind.
Right. So you're saying this is not, firm and kind is not a fixed quantity.
Right. Firm to one kid is going to be like too strict to another. And then that same kind of firm, another kid's going to be like, that's nothing. So it's like you have to adapt to each one of the kids. And it's important as a parent to remember that you need to do the adapting because you're the adult. Like, as adults, we have to remember that it's way easier for us to adapt to the kids than it is to make them adapt. That's one of the mistakes I made as a coach, I felt, is that, I'm like, well, these kids have to adapt to my style, but I'm the adult. I should be more emotionally regulated. I should be more mentally with it. And I should adapt to the style of my players and the style of my kids more than I should force them. Now I can invite them to adapt to my style a little bit, but that needs to be intentional.
Yeah. Can I take us back into the 70s?
It's not a bad decade.
Oh, this is going to shock the young parents, but my mom used the wooden spoon on me.
Ooh.
In fact, one of my sisters sent me a picture. She said she was possibly going to buy this T-shirt for me, and it's the shirt said, "I survived the wooden spoon." But for one kid, and please don't. No, actually, do send in some hate mail. That would be good. That would be fun to. That would be fun to deal with. I don't want to get into whether we should advocate spanking. That's a whole other thing.
Yeah, but that's a personal decision for each.
Yeah, but I
family.
lived in an era where the wooden spoon was, and I deserved it. I can't remember exactly what I did, but like when the spoon came out, you could hear the drawer open.
Mm-hmm.
But I also knew my mother loved me. So I think she was a really good example of firm and kind. But my thing on the wooden spoon was there would be some kids that the wooden spoon would be very effective on. It really didn't hurt. I just kind of pretended like it hurt, because I knew she wanted to make a point. So I put on my sad puppy dog eyes and pretended like that was a great punishment. A worse punishment would have been, you can't go outside and play basketball. That would have been absolutely awful.
See, and that's adapting. Understanding, this is what I can do to show firmness for little Stevie is, Steve, you can't go outside and play basketball until Friday.
That's harsh. You are the meanest parent in the world. Why was I born into this family?
Well, because we wanted you. We love having you here, and sorry you feel that way right now, but you know what the rules are and you chose to break them. So this will be the consequence. And once Friday hits, you can get right back out there with your basketball, but I hope you've learned from this.
As we're having this discussion, Nate, we have a few episodes, I think, that fit right into kind of go with this. Episodes 58 and 59, where we discussed how much freedom do we give our kids and are your expectations getting in the way. Episode 22, parents, let's take a trip to the ER. And we talked about emotional regulation. Yep. And that's one of our most popular episodes. So those, if you're just joining the podcast and you like what you hear, those would be episodes that you could go back and listen to. I want to ask you about the expectations, though.
Okay.
When we're talking about being a firm and kind parent, which I think what we're saying is this can really move you from good to great.
Yeah.
If you can because I think everybody's probably doing this to some degree, but if we can dial this up in the right amounts and find the right balance, adapt appropriately for each of our kids, if you have more than one child that you're dealing with, or if coaches, if you can, this applies to coaches too, as well, doesn't it? With your teams, you can move to the grade level, which is obviously better for the kids. And maybe we can go into some of those things, but how does expectations fit into this? Our expectations that we have for our teens.
Expectations can be a bit of a two-edged sword, because if the expectations come across as unrealistic to the kid, or if the expectations feel to the kid like they're more important than the kid themselves, then it can be a bit of a backfire. It sends a message of unkindness. So you have to be careful with the expectations. Standards are critical. You set the standard, and then and again, it goes back to the idea that I shared earlier. It's consistency and it's communication. If I communicate to my kid, these are the standards. This is why we have the standards. This is what we're hoping for you to get out of this. And that's why we have this. We are going to ask that you get the best possible grades in your class because it gives you the most options, and it's going to help you develop a lot of discipline in your life. And those are critical things for you to go into adulthood with: options and discipline. If you have options and discipline, you got a great chance going forward in your life. That's why we have these expectations. And then have some clear boundaries about this is what needs to happen. These are the things that will happen if they don't. And we've talked about this before in other episodes as well. If that's a mutual conversation, now you set yourself up for a very respectful, kind enforcement of the expectations, but the kids know why those are the expectations, and the expectations aren't more important than them.
If this is modeled correctly and done, and you add the consistency in, like you said, we're going to create a safe environment where they can grow. This is totally growth mindset centered. The kids are going to be able to learn from their mistakes. I think we're going to help them to be more responsible, and we're going to help them to be more respectful.
Yeah.
Because you have to model that if you're going to do firm and kind. Can I throw a curveball at you?
Yeah, I like curveballs.
I know you like curveballs.
Usually put them about 450 feet somewhere in the left center area.
So as you're talking about firm and kind, I'm thinking about, I'm actually picturing myself as a coach. And I made hundreds and hundreds of mistakes as a coach. I'm trying to think myself going back in time, and how would I do some things differently with players, teams, etc. And I really feel like I was firm. I also feel like I was kind. I felt like I really showed my players that I loved them, cared about them, loved the team. But when I think of kind, I actually think of being soft.
Mm-hmm.
And the emotion involved is like, okay, I'm going to hug you, and we're going to have a good cry and a bowl of ice cream. And then when I think of firm, it's like I tend to think of possibly anger or showing disappointment. I'm being firm here. I'm drawing a line here. I'm creating a boundary here because you have disappointed me, or you acted out. You made this behavioral mistake. So where am I going wrong here?
You know what the secret sauce is?
Okay, this is because I need some help here on being firm and kind. How do I do this correctly?
The secret sauce is to really, really, really notice and go all in on when they do it right. If you make a big deal, almost like an obnoxiously big deal, you have to be careful embarrassing them in front of their friends. But if you really concentrate on, you see them do something well, like they meet the expectation, they exceed the expectation. I'm making eye contact. I'm like, dude, you killed that. That was amazing. That's exactly the kind of thing that I know you can do. I'm so proud of you. This makes me trust you more. All the good things that you can bring in, but really, really, really notice and call out when they do it right. Because what it does is you buy yourself, it's the bank account analogy. Those are deposits. And when we have to be firm, we have to take some of those out. We have to pull some of those out because being firm's tough. And if we're consistently doing it, we have to do that. But if we're going to do that, we have to notice when they're doing things right. And that sets up the kind thing. So it's, if we do that, recognize, man, you did that great. You did that great. Just boom, 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 boom. Really notice those things. You'll see your kids actually do a lot more right than I think we give them credit for sometimes.
That's beautiful.
That sets it up. That's your secret sauce.
Yeah, I really like that. And I just had what I think is an insight. And it goes back to your question or statement near the beginning of the episode when you were saying, what is the most important word, when you said firm and kind. Mm-hmm. And I mean, the brain would probably say, oh, well, should it be firm or should it be kind? And you said it's the word and. And so being able to be, so when I'm kind, I should also be firm. And when I am being firm, I should be kind. Is that too simplistic? Am I?
I don't think it's too, like, if you can learn to be kind while being firm and be firm while being kind, that's kind of like what I was saying about the giving the compliments. If they know that if I'm serious about the compliment, if they think that I really mean it, which I think is a firmness to your kindness, then it carries more weight. But yeah, you can do both for sure. And that's what we want to get at, is we can be both firm and kind.
I think we're there. So a great question for parents is simply, how can I be both firm and kind?
Well, I two suggestions that I have on that, how to be both firm and kind. Being firm is about, if you have clarity of boundaries, that sets you up for being firm. If you manage your busyness and stress well, that sets you up for being kind. I think most of us as parents, when we foul up kind, it's because we've let our busyness and our stress level get in the way of how we really want to show up for our kids. I'm stressed about something at work, something else going on, and then I snap on my kids.
And then we apologize later.
Right. Which is the kind thing to do.
Yeah. Okay. I like that.
And kids are super forgiving. Like if we apologize, if we own our mistakes, that they respect that.
But how much better would this be? How much quicker would we move from good to great if we have a plan in place? We always talk, I mean, one of my favorite things is a preemptive strike.
Yes.
You know, a preemptive missile strike. If you have a war room military strategy as a parent, whether you're on your own or with your spouse, and you really just, I don't think it has to be lengthy, but you talk about, how can we be both firm and kind? How can we draw the boundary line here and also be very kind in doing it? Then there's less chance of, like, you may notice when you're really stressed and you want to just immediately go to the wooden spoon, then it might be, let's let this sit for a little while, and then we'll address it.
I want to finish by just connecting this because we've got parents of athletes and performers here. When you do this for your kids, what you teach them is how to be disciplined in their approach to their performance and their sports. Because they now learn from watching you, they learn how to interact with coaches and teammates, and they learn how to approach their sport in a disciplined manner, where they can be both firm in pushing themselves towards success, but be kind with themselves as they deal with their mistakes and the mistakes of others. You're elevating them as a performer by doing this. And that's why it matters.
That is a great finish, Nate.
Thanks.
I'm going to buy you the wooden spoon t-shirt.
On behalf of Steve Galley, I'm Nate Crandall, and we thank you, our loyal listeners, for tuning in to this episode. If you love what you're learning from the Stop Parenting and Start Coaching podcast, we would appreciate it very much if you would leave us a 5-star review and some glowing comments. We also encourage you to share this episode with your friends and family who are parents of athletes and performers. And if you want to explore further and see what Steve and I are creating to help thousands of parents, athletes, and performers, please visit our company's website at createtransformbecome.com. That's createtransformbecome, all one word, .com. There you'll find a growing number of resources to help you elevate your performance. Thank you again for your support, and we encourage you to create a magical relationship with your athlete and performer.